Hello everyone, I am Irnalini, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Information Technology in V.S.B Engineering College, Karur. The topic that we are going to see today is understanding the basic web development framework. It is one of the most important topic in full stack web development. First, let us see what is a web development framework. A web development framework consists of software tools, libraries and code structures that is helpful in providing a foundation for the developers to build a proper web application. Next is it offers a structured approach and also a standardized practices to streamline the development process, and it also helps in improving and increasing the productivity and to maintain the consistency across the projects. Next, the components of the web framework. There are four main components of the web framework. First is the user, the next one is the browser, the third one is the web server, and the fourth one is the backend services. So this diagram depicts the basic interaction between all the four components of the web framework. First, the user interacts with the browser, which in turn interacts with the web server to retrieve data from the backend services, and it again displays the data to the user via the browser. So this is the basic interaction. And this diagram depicts a detailed interaction among all the four components of the web framework. Here the user sends a request to the browser. The browser has the client-side JavaScript, JSON and XML, CSS images, and it handles the user interactions. It helps in sending the request via the HTTP and HTTPS protocols to the server. The server in turn runs the server-side scripts, and it also helps in accessing the data from the database and retrieves it to the server, and it sends to the browser, which displays it to the view by the user. Next is the user. The user is the person who interacts with the web application. The main role played by the user is to provide the requirements and specifications of the web application. So the user is helpful in influencing the design and functionality of the web application that is being developed by the developer. So the user also has other roles such as the providing requirements. So in providing requirements and specifications by the user, based on that requirements, the web application is developed. So it helps in defining the functionality and design features of the web application. Next is the user experience evaluation. The next role played by the user is to evaluate the user experience of the web application based on the usability and accessibility of the web application developed. So based on that user experience, he will provide a feedback and a refinement of the web application is made. Next is the testing. The user participates in the user acceptance testing. The user acceptance testing is mainly done to identify the bugs or errors and also to find out the areas that need improvement. Next, based on the user acceptance testing, a feedback is given by the user to the developer. Next is based on that feedback, again if any refinement is to be done on the web application, it is made and it is done before putting the web application into the real world, that is before deployment. Next is the accessibility and inclusivity. The user is helpful in finding the accessibility challenges, and the user helps to improve the accessibility features of the web application. Accessibility also helps in removing the barriers that prevents the physically disabled people to participate in the usage of any applications. Next is inclusivity. Inclusivity means it is helpful in including all the physically disabled people to be the valuable members of the society. Next is the browser. The browser has three roles to be played. One is the browser to web server communication. In browser to web server communication, the browser provides communication to and from the web server. It also consists of a series of requests such as the HTTP and HTTPS protocols. The HTTP protocols is very useful in providing a communication between browser and the web server, whereas the HTTPS protocol provides a more secure communication by providing a certificate. It requires a web server to provide a certificate to the browser. The user will decide either to accept the certificate or to deny it. Next, the browser makes three types of requests to the server. One is GET, the next one is POST, the third one is AJAX. the GET request is used to retrieve data from the server, whereas the POST request is used to submit the data to the server. AJAX means asynchronous JavaScript and XML, which is either a GET request or a POST request, which is done by the JavaScript running in the browser. Next is the rendering the browser view. So the browser interprets the data from the server and renders it into view by the user. The browser initially reads the URL and then it decides whether to render the HTML document to build a document object model. A document object model is a tree structure which has the same structure similar to that of the HTML document. So the most common type of data that the browser uses to render the final user view are HTML files, CSS files, client-side scripts, media files and HTTP headers. The HTML files are used to define the structure of the document object model. The CSS files are used to define how the elements in a web page is to be styled. The client-side scripts are the Java scripts. Next is the media files. The media files include image, video and audio files. The HTTP headers helps in defining what kind of data is to be requested by the user and what type of data is to be retrieved from the server. Next is the user interaction. The user interaction is handled by the browser and the appropriate action is taken by the browser. So the user interaction can be happened by using the input devices like keyboard, mouse and the screens. So the appropriate actions taken by the browser include displaying a pop-up menu and also downloading a document and executing client-side JavaScripts and also many other actions done by the browser. Next is the server. The main focus of the server is to handle the request given by the user via the browser. The web server uses the HTTP request and URL to determine what kind of action is to be taken on the request obtained from the browser. The most commonly used web servers such as Apache, Tomcat and IIS use static files such as HTML, CSS and media files. Next is the backend services. As the name indicates, the services that run behind the server are known as the backend services. So it is helpful in providing the data which is given as responses to the browser. Next, the common type of databases that common type of backend services that we usually use are the databases. For example, MySQL, MongoDB and Oracle. Next is the what are all the process done by the backend services. So when a request comes from the browser, which is helpful in requiring the information from the database, then the server-side script connects to the database, obtains the information from the database, then it formats or refines it and put it into the browser, which is helpful in displaying it to the user. Next, when a data comes from the web request that needs to be stored in the database, then the server-side script connects to the database and updates the data which is contained in the database. So this is about the backend services. So we have seen the overall view about the basic web development framework. Thank you.